A good police dog can smell fear. A great one can smell the truth. The rain starts before sunset that evening, slow drops tapping against patrol car windows like nervous fingers on old church wood, and downtown Blackwater glows beneath red brake lights and campaign banners flapping in the cold October wind, while Officer Ethan Cole stands beside Rex near the barricades outside Mercer Square, one hand resting lightly against the thick fur behind the German shepherd's neck, feeling the steady warmth beneath his palm, feeling the silence that only comes before something bad happens. The crowd is loud tonight. Too loud. Reporters push shoulder to shoulder beneath umbrellas. Camera flashes burst like lightning. Children wave tiny American flags near the front rail, while volunteers pass out coffee and blue campaign buttons with Daniel Mercer printed in bold white letters. Ethan watches everything the way Marines learn to watch deserts before gunfire. Slow eyes. Quiet breathing. Exit routes first. Then faces. But Rex is not looking at the crowd. The dog's ears flatten slightly as another gust of rain carries a scent through the square. Ethan notices it immediately. Rex freezes. Completely. Not aggressive. Not excited. Just still. The kind of stillness that means instinct has taken over. Easy, boy, Ethan murmurs softly, though his own pulse begins to tighten beneath the collar of his coat. On stage, Daniel Mercer smiles beneath golden lights, waving at supporters while patriotic music hums through giant speakers mounted beside the City Hall steps. He looks perfect from a distance. Silver hair, tailored navy overcoat, calm politician smile practiced over 20 years of television interviews and ribbon cuttings. The kind of man people trust before they know why. But Rex lets out a low sound deep in his throat, barely audible beneath the music. Ethan kneels beside him. Rainwater drips from Rex's muzzle onto the pavement. The dog's nose twitches once, twice, then again. Searching, hunting. Ethan has seen this before overseas in dusty villages outside Fallujah when military dogs caught the scent of explosives buried beneath roads civilians walked every day. Same stare, same tension, same warning. The speech begins. Mercer talks about safer streets, better schools, faith, family, hope. The crowd cheers after every sentence while red and blue lights from nearby patrol cars smear across puddles like spilled paint. Then Mercer steps off the stage to greet supporters along the barricade. Hands reach toward him from every direction. Phones rise into the air. Secret Service detail tightens around the mayoral candidate as he smiles and shakes hands beneath the rain. And then it happens. Rex jerks violently against the leash. Ethan barely has time to react before the German shepherd lunges forward through the crowd straight toward Mercer. Gasps explode across the square. Someone screams. Cameras whip sideways. Ethan shouts the dog's name, but Rex is already there, paws hitting the barricade hard as he snaps toward Mercer's wrist with a sharp bark that cuts through the music like broken glass. Security drags Mercer backward instantly. Officers rush forward. The crowd erupts into chaos. But Ethan's eyes lock onto Rex. Because the dog is trembling. Not angry. Not out of control. Terrified. Rex stares directly at Mercer now, ears pinned flat, breathing fast, water dripping from his fur while a strange whine escapes his throat. Ethan has never heard that sound before. Not in training. Not in combat. Not ever. Mercer clutches his sleeve while cameras flash wildly around him, reporters shouting questions over the storm. "Control your dog," someone yells. "What the hell is wrong with that animal?" Another voice screams from the crowd. But Ethan barely hears them. Because the moment Mercer steps backward beneath the stage lights, the wind shifts again. And for half a second, beneath the expensive cologne and cold rain, Ethan smells it too. Chlorine, rust, and something faint underneath both of them that makes Rex lower his head and begin to shake. By midnight, every television in Blackwater is replaying the same 7 seconds over and over again. The police dog lunging through the rain. Daniel Mercer stumbling backward beneath flashing cameras. Reporters speaking with that hungry excitement people reserve for public disasters. Ethan watches the footage alone from the corner booth of a 24-hour diner off Route 9, while neon lights hum against the fogged windows and cold coffee sits untouched beside his elbow. Across the room, 2 truckers glance up at the television mounted above the counter. That dog snapped. One of them mutters quietly before returning to his plate. Ethan says nothing. Rex lies beneath the table near his boots, unusually still, his brown eyes fixed on the floor tiles as if he can still smell the storm from Mercer Square lingering on Ethan's coat. The waitress lowers the volume after recognizing Ethan from the news. Sympathy touches her face for half a second before uncertainty replaces it. People trust uniforms until the headlines tell them not to. Outside, rainwater rushes along the gutters while distant sirens drift through the sleeping city. Ethan reaches down slowly and rests his hand against Rex's shoulder. The dog flinches. That bothers him more than the attack itself. Rex never flinches. Not during firearms training. Not during riots. Not even during thunderstorms that rattled apartment windows hard enough to shake picture frames from walls. But tonight the German Shepherd feels different. Nervous. Alert. Listening to sounds no one else can hear. Ethan pulls a folded napkin from his coat pocket. Inside is the scent cloth Rex kept reacting to back at the square, accidentally dropped during the chaos near the barricade. Expensive perfume still clings to the fabric. Sharp, floral, artificial, but underneath it sits something else. Something metallic. Ethan brings the cloth closer to Rex carefully. The reaction is immediate. Rex lifts his head and releases a low, uneasy whine before backing away beneath the booth. Ethan feels his stomach tighten. "What did you smell, buddy?" he whispers. The dog stares at him with wet eyes reflecting the blue diner lights. Then Ethan notices it again himself. Faint, almost buried beneath detergent and perfume. Chlorine, like old pool water, or industrial cleaner. But there is another scent too. Rust, warm and bitter beneath the chemical sting. A memory flashes through Ethan's mind before he can stop it. Military hospitals overseas. Damp concrete corridors. The smell of bleach trying and failing to cover blood. He folds the napkin shut immediately. The diner television changes to a live press conference outside City Hall, where Daniel Mercer stands before microphones with a fresh bandage wrapped neatly around his wrist. He smiles for the cameras. Calm. Controlled. "I hold no anger toward the officer or the animal," Mercer says gently. But dangerous behavior cannot be ignored. Ethan studies Mercer's face carefully. The polished smile. The perfect tone. Then something strange happens beside him. Rex slowly crawls out from beneath the table and positions himself between Ethan and the television screen. Ears flattened again. Eyes locked directly onto Mercer's image. The dog begins trembling so lightly most people would never notice it. But Ethan notices everything about this dog. Every breath. Every scar. Every silence. A police dispatcher suddenly crackles through Ethan's radio clipped near his shoulder. "Officer Cole, report to Central Precinct immediately." The voice pauses. "Come alone." Ethan looks down at Rex. The German Shepherd does not move away from the television. Outside, thunder rolls across Blackwater like distant artillery. Central Precinct smells like wet concrete, burnt coffee, and old paper left too long beneath fluorescent lights. Ethan walks through the front doors just after 1 in the morning with rainwater still dripping from the edge of his jacket, while every conversation inside the station seems to stop for half a second the moment officers notice him. Some avoid eye contact entirely. Others stare too long. The television mounted near dispatch continues replaying the footage from Mercer Square, with bright red headlines scrolling beneath it like accusations carved into glass. City K9 attacks mayoral candidate. Public safety concerns rise. Rex pads quietly beside Ethan across the tile floor, nails clicking softly in the silence. Usually officers greet him. Someone always reaches down to scratch behind his ears or toss him half a donut from the break room. Tonight nobody moves toward the dog. Fear spreads fast in buildings like this. Faster than truth ever does. Captain Howard waits near the end of the hallway outside Internal Affairs, arms crossed over his gray uniform shirt. His face looks exhausted beneath the harsh overhead lights. "The dog stays outside," he says quietly. Ethan does not answer immediately. Rex sits automatically beside him, perfectly trained, perfectly calm. Captain Howard watches the German Shepherd carefully before lowering his voice. "Ethan, just make this easy tonight." Easy. Ethan almost laughs at the word. Nothing about this night feels easy. He removes Rex's leash slowly and kneels beside him. "Stay." The dog obeys instantly, though his ears remain alert toward the hallway beyond the captain's shoulder. Ethan notices it again. That tension. That strange fear humming beneath Rex's silence like an invisible wire pulled too tight. Inside the conference room, the air feels cold enough to preserve meat. Internal affairs officers sit around a steel table stacked with printed screenshots from news broadcasts and social media clips already viewed millions of times. Someone has paused one frame directly on Rex lunging toward Mercer beneath the rain. Ethan hates how easy a single frozen image can become a lie. Lieutenant Sarah Bennett slides a folder across the table. Pending investigation, Rex is suspended from active duty effective immediately. Ethan opens the folder slowly. Official language. Psychological evaluation. Public liability review. Possible euthanasia recommendation if aggression is confirmed. The word sits on the page like poison. Aggression. Ethan finally says, his voice low. That dog served 2 tours overseas before half the men in this building passed the academy. No one answers him directly. Lieutenant Bennett folds her hands together carefully. Mercer does not want charges filed. How generous of him. This is bigger than Mercer now. Ethan leans back in the chair, exhausted eyes drifting toward the rain streaking down the dark window beside the table. Rex smelled something. One of the internal affairs officers sighs impatiently. Dogs are animals, Officer Cole. Ethan looks at him for a long moment. No, he says quietly. People are animals. Dogs just do not know how to lie about it. Silence settles across the room after that. Somewhere beyond the hallway, a police radio crackles faintly through static. Then Rex barks once outside the conference room. Sharp. Sudden. Not angry. Warning. Ethan turns immediately toward the door. Another bark follows. Then complete silence. Captain Howard appears in the doorway seconds later with an uneasy expression Ethan has never seen before. Your dog found something, the captain says quietly. You need to come look at this. The evidence locker hallway is darker than the rest of the precinct, lit by tired fluorescent bulbs that buzz softly overhead like trapped insects. Ethan follows Captain Howard through the narrow corridor while Rex walks several feet ahead now, nose low to the floor, moving with the slow certainty of an animal following something invisible. Officers peek out from open doorways as they pass. Nobody speaks. The entire building feels different after midnight, stripped down to its real bones. No reporters. No speeches. Just old tile floors, exhausted cops, and secrets hiding inside locked rooms. Rex stops suddenly outside storage room C. The German Shepherd stares at the metal door without blinking. A soft growl vibrates deep in his chest. Captain Howard frowns. This room was sealed after the rally tonight. Ethan notices the scent before the captain even reaches for his keys. Chlorine again. Faint, but unmistakable. Mixed with damp cardboard and stale cigarette smoke. The door swings open slowly with a long metallic creak. Inside, shelves stacked with evidence boxes rise toward the ceiling beneath flickering lights. Wet umbrellas lean against one wall beside several confiscated campaign signs for Mercer Square. Rex enters first. Quiet. Focused. Ethan watches the dog carefully now. Every movement means something. Every pause is language. Rex circles once near a folding table covered in collected items from the rally before stopping beside a clear plastic evidence bag. Inside sits a small white handkerchief embroidered with gold thread. Ethan recognizes it immediately. The same cloth from earlier. Only now he notices another item logged beside it. A child's bracelet. Pink beads. Tiny silver cross charm. His chest tightens. Why would this be here? Ethan asks softly. Captain Howard checks the inventory sheet clipped to the table. Recovered near the south barricade after the incident. Rex presses closer to the evidence bag, trembling again. Not aggression. Fear. The dog lowers himself slowly onto the concrete floor beside the bracelet and rests his chin near it, ears flattened tight against his skull. Ethan kneels beside him carefully. Buddy. Rex whines quietly. A heartbreaking sound. The kind dogs make when they recognize pain they cannot explain. Captain Howard shifts uneasily behind them. Maybe it belongs to some kid from the rally. Ethan shakes his head slowly. No, he studies the bracelet closer through the plastic. One bead is cracked near the clasp. Dirt still clings beneath the silver cross as though it had been dragged through mud or storm drains before ending up here. Rex suddenly lifts his head toward the far side of the room. His ears twitch once. Then he moves quickly toward a stack of sealed cardboard boxes waiting for cataloging. Ethan follows him across the room while the dog sniffs along the edges before freezing near one particular box marked campaign materials. Rex scratches lightly against it. Once, twice. Ethan pulls on latex gloves from a nearby counter and carefully opens the top flaps. Inside are dozens of folded campaign banners soaked from rainwater. But beneath them sits something else. A tiny red sneaker. Child-sized. No bigger than Ethan's hand. The entire room goes silent. Even the buzzing overhead lights seem quieter now. Ethan lifts the shoe carefully from the box. Mud stains the white rubber sole. One lace hangs loose. Rex backs away immediately the moment the shoe leaves the box, whining again while his tail lowers almost to the floor. Ethan feels cold move through his body despite the heated room. "This was not logged," he says quietly. Captain Howard stares at the sneaker without speaking for several long seconds. Then he exhales slowly and rubs a tired hand across his mouth. "Put it back," he mutters. Ethan looks at him sharply. "What?" "You heard me." The captain's voice drops lower now. Nervous. "Put it back in the box and walk away from this." Somewhere deep in the building, a phone begins ringing endlessly through the silence while Rex keeps staring at the little red shoe like it belongs to a ghost. The ringing phone finally stops somewhere inside the precinct, but the silence that follows feels worse. Ethan keeps staring at the tiny red sneaker resting in his gloved hand while rain taps softly against the narrow basement windows near the ceiling. Captain Howard closes the evidence box with more force than necessary and looks toward the hallway as if afraid someone might walk in and see them standing there. "You need to let this go," he says quietly. Ethan lifts his eyes. "A child's shoe ends up hidden inside unlogged campaign evidence, and you want me to let it go?" Howard exhales heavily through his nose. The deep lines in his face suddenly make him look 10 years older. "You think I do not know how this looks? Then explain it to me." But the captain only shakes his head once. Small. Defeated. Rex rises slowly from the floor beside the evidence table and moves toward Ethan, pressing close against his leg like he senses the tension thickening in the room. The dog keeps glancing toward the hallway, listening. Ethan removes his gloves carefully and slips the red sneaker into an empty paper evidence bag before folding the top shut. "This is coming with me." Howard steps forward immediately. "No, it stays here." Ethan's stare hardens. "Then officially log it." The captain says nothing, and that silence tells Ethan everything. Somewhere upstairs, a burst of laughter echoes briefly from the bullpen before fading again beneath the hum of fluorescent lights. Normal life, continuing one floor above buried secrets. Ethan kneels beside Rex and scratches gently behind the dog's ear. "Good boy," he whispers softly. Rex leans into his hand, but still looks uneasy, nose twitching toward the evidence shelves. Then suddenly the dog turns his head sharply toward the cardboard box again and begins sniffing the air with growing urgency. Ethan notices it too now. Beneath the chlorine smell sits another scent drifting from the soaked campaign banners. Salt water. Not ocean salt exactly. Dirtier. Industrial. Harbor water. Blackwater docks sit less than 2 miles from Mercer Square. Ethan feels something cold settle quietly into place inside his mind. "This stuff came through the port," he mutters. Howard immediately stiffens. "Do not start inventing stories." "I am not inventing anything." Ethan holds up the paper evidence bag containing the child's shoe. "Rex found this buried under campaign material that smells like harbor runoff and bleach." The captain rubs a tired hand over his face before lowering his voice almost to a whisper. "Ethan, listen to me carefully. Some doors do not open back up once you walk through them." The words hang there for several long seconds. Heavy. Honest. Ethan studies the older man carefully. This is not fear for careers anymore. This feels personal. Rex suddenly releases another soft whine and backs away from the evidence shelves entirely, tail lowered again. Ethan follows the dog's gaze toward a dark stain near the bottom corner of the cardboard box. Small, rust-colored, barely visible beneath rainwater damage. Howard notices Ethan looking at it and quickly steps between him and the box. Too quickly. That movement alone says more than any confession ever could. Ethan slowly straightens to his feet. Who else knows about this? Howard looks down at the concrete floor instead of answering. Somewhere outside the station, thunder rolls again across the city while headlights sweep briefly through the basement windows like passing ghosts. Then Rex does something he has never done before inside a police building. The German Shepherd moves behind Ethan instead of in front of him. The rain finally stops around 3 in the morning, leaving Blackwater wrapped in that strange silence cities only have before dawn. Ethan drives with the windows cracked slightly open while cold air carries the smell of wet asphalt through the patrol vehicle. Rex sits upright in the back seat behind the metal divider, unusually alert, ears twitching toward every passing sound outside. Streetlights smear across the windshield in pale gold streaks, while harbor fog drifts low between abandoned warehouses near the riverfront. Ethan cannot stop thinking about the little red sneaker sealed inside the paper evidence bag resting on the passenger seat beside him. A child's shoe. Hidden. Unlocked. Forgotten on purpose. The thought settles heavy inside his chest like concrete. He pulls into the empty parking lot beside St. Gabriel's Church, just as the old bell tower begins ringing for slow chimes through the darkness. The church sits only 3 blocks from Mercer Square, surrounded by narrow brick buildings and dying oak trees that scatter wet leaves across the sidewalk. Ethan kills the engine but does not move immediately. Rex lets out a soft sound from the back seat. Restless. Waiting. You smelled something there, did you not? Ethan whispers quietly. The German Shepherd stares at him through the divider with tired eyes that seem almost human beneath the dim dashboard glow. Ethan grabs the evidence bag and steps out into the cold morning air. The church doors are unlocked. They always are. Father Marcus believed people carried enough locked doors inside themselves already. Warm candlelight flickers softly through the empty sanctuary while the scent of old wood and incense hangs in the air. Father Marcus appears near the altar wearing a gray sweater beneath his priest collar, silver hair messy from sleep. He does not seem surprised to see Ethan standing there before sunrise with a police dog beside him. Bad night, the priest asks gently. Ethan gives a tired nod. Rex walks slowly into the sanctuary ahead of them, paws clicking softly against polished wood floors. Then the dog suddenly stops near the front pews. Completely still. Father Marcus notices it immediately. That dog has been here before, he says quietly. Ethan looks up sharply. What? The priest walks closer, studying Rex carefully beneath the candlelight. About 2 weeks ago, during the storm, Ethan feels his pulse quicken. Rex has not worked this district in months. Father Marcus shakes his head slowly. Not with you. Silence fills the church. Somewhere outside, wind brushes softly through tree branches. Ethan kneels beside Rex. What do you mean? The priest lowers his voice. A black van parked outside the church one night after midnight. I remember because the storm knocked the power out across half the block. His eyes drift toward the stained glass windows now glowing faint blue with approaching dawn. This dog was in the alley beside the church. Alone. Wet. Frightened. Ethan stares at him in disbelief. Rex lowers his head quietly against Ethan's shoulder. That is impossible, Ethan whispers. Rex never leaves the kennel without authorization. Father Marcus studies the dog for another long moment before speaking again. He kept staring at the van. Not barking. Just watching. The priest's expression darkens slightly beneath the candlelight. Then I heard a child crying. Ethan feels cold spread slowly through his body. Did you call the police? Father Marcus nods once. A patrol unit arrived 20 minutes later. And the priest looks away toward the rows of empty pews. They told me I imagined it. Silence settles heavily between them. Then Father Marcus notices the evidence bag in Ethan's hand. The little red sneaker visible through the folded paper window. The old priest stops breathing for half a second. Dear God, he whispers softly. That is hers. Father Marcus takes the paper evidence bag with trembling hands, careful not to damage it, the same way people hold photographs of someone they lost years ago. Morning light begins slipping through the stained glass windows behind him, painting faint colors across the church floor, while Rex remains pressed close against Ethan's leg, watching the old priest with silent focus. Who is she? Ethan asks quietly. Father Marcus stares at the tiny red sneaker for several seconds before answering. Her name is Lily. The name lands softly inside the empty church. Human suddenly. Real. Not just evidence anymore. Ethan feels something tighten painfully in his chest. Last name. I never learned it. The priest's voice sounds ashamed now. She came to the church food pantry with her mother every Thursday afternoon. He slowly returns the evidence bag. 7 years old. Quiet little thing. always carried crayons in her coat pocket. Rex lowers his head slightly at the sound of the girl's name, ears flattening again. Ethan notices it immediately. Dogs remember emotions tied to scent the way people remember songs. When did she disappear? Father Marcus walks toward the front pews, exhaustion bending his shoulders beneath the gray sweater. About 3 weeks ago. Ethan follows him slowly while the church heater rattles softly through old metal vents overhead. Was she reported missing? The priest gives a bitter smile without humor. That depends who you ask. He sits near the aisle and folds his weathered hands together. Her mother came here, crying 2 days after the storm. Said Lily never came home after school. Ethan feels his pulse begin to rise again. And the police? Father Marcus looks toward the flickering candles near the altar. A report was taken. Then suddenly the report disappeared. Silence spreads through the sanctuary. Outside, distant harbor horns groan through the fog drifting over Blackwater Bay. Ethan sits across from the priest slowly, every instinct inside him now fully awake. Who handled the case? Father Marcus hesitates too long before answering. Chief Warren. Ethan's jaw tightens immediately. Chief Warren had pinned Ethan's service medal on his uniform 6 years earlier during the ceremony, welcoming him home from overseas. Decorated officer. Public hero. Trusted by everyone in Blackwater. You are certain? Father Marcus nods once. Lily's mother kept coming back here asking questions. Then one day she stopped coming entirely. Ethan stares down at the floorboards beneath his boots while memories begin connecting themselves inside his mind, like dark puzzle pieces finally finding their edges. The hidden evidence. The harbor smell. Mercer's campaign materials. Missing reports. Chief Warren. Rex suddenly moves away from Ethan and begins walking slowly toward a side hallway near the prayer candles. The German shepherd sniffs carefully along the walls before stopping beside a wooden donation table. Father Marcus rises slowly. That is where he stood during the storm. Ethan approaches beside Rex while old floorboards creak beneath their feet. The dog lowers his nose near the bottom edge of the table and inhales sharply. Then he looks up toward a small frosted window facing the alley behind the church. Ethan walks closer and notices faint scratch marks along the outside frame. Not fresh, but not old either. The van was parked out there, he asks quietly. Father Marcus nods. Black cargo van. No plates. Ethan studies the alley through the glass while dawn light slowly burns away the fog outside. Then he sees it, barely visible near the brick wall across the alley. A child's drawing trapped beneath a rain gutter. Water damaged. Torn, but still there. Rex lets out a low, uneasy whine before backing away from the window entirely. Ethan steps outside into the cold morning air and crosses the alley carefully. The paper sticks wetly against the bricks when he pulls it free. Crayon drawing. A little girl holding hands with a dog beside blue water and a building marked with a crooked red cross. But in the corner, written shakily in a child's handwriting, are 3 words that make Ethan's blood run cold. He found me. The paper trembles slightly in Ethan's hands as cold wind moves through the alley behind St. Gabriel's Church. He found me. 3 childish words written in uneven blue crayon beneath a drawing of water, a dog, and a crooked red cross. Dawn slowly spreads across Blackwater now, turning puddles silver beneath the fading streetlights while Rex remains near the church steps, staring toward the harbor like he can still hear echoes hidden inside the fog. Ethan folds the drawing carefully and slips it into his coat pocket beside the evidence bag, holding the red sneaker. Father Marcus watches him with quiet concern from the doorway. What are you going to do? The priest asks softly. Ethan looks toward the distant cranes lining Blackwater docks. Find out what Rex was trying to tell us. The harbor district feels abandoned this early in the morning. Rusted shipping containers rise like sleeping giants beside the water while gulls circle overhead beneath low gray clouds. Ethan parks 3 blocks from Pier 14 and continues on foot with Rex moving silently beside him. The smell hits immediately. Salt water, oil, wet wood, and underneath it all, faint traces of chlorine drifting through the cold air exactly the same way they did near Mercer. Rex slows near the entrance gate of an old medical supply warehouse at the edge of the pier. The building has been closed for years according to the faded city notices hanging crookedly on the fence, but fresh tire tracks cut through the rainwater mud leading toward the loading docks. Ethan studies them carefully. Heavy vehicle. Commercial size. Recent. Rex suddenly pulls forward harder against the leash, nose twitching rapidly now. Easy, Ethan whispers. But the dog is locked onto the scent completely. A chain link section near the fence hangs loose enough for them to slip through. Inside, the warehouse yard feels strangely quiet compared to the rest of the harbor. No workers. No forklifts. No radios humming through open truck doors. Just wind moving against corrugated steel walls and the distant groan of ships somewhere beyond the fog. Rex leads Ethan toward the rear loading area where faded red crosses are still visible on old delivery signs above the docks. Ethan stops cold. The crooked red cross from Lily's drawing. Same shape. Same tilted angle. Jesus Christ, he mutters under his breath. Rex begins whining softly now while sniffing near a drainage grate beside the loading ramp. Ethan kneels carefully beside him. Water trickles slowly beneath the grate, carrying the sharp chemical smell stronger than ever before. Chlorine. Industrial cleaner. But there is something else too. Crayons. Bubblegum shampoo. Child scents faintly trapped beneath the chemicals trying to bury them. Ethan's stomach turns. Rex paws gently at the grate once before backing away again, ears pinned flat. Then the German shepherd freezes completely. Footsteps. Somewhere inside the warehouse. Ethan kills his flashlight instantly and moves behind a stack of shipping pallets while Rex stays low beside him without a sound. A side door opens briefly across the yard. Yellow light spills onto wet concrete for only a second before a man in a dark security jacket steps outside, smoking a cigarette. Ethan cannot see the face clearly through the fog, but he recognizes the patch on the sleeve immediately. Blackwater Police Department. The officer glances around nervously before speaking into a radio too quietly to hear. Then headlights suddenly sweep across the yard from the street entrance. A black cargo van rolls slowly through the gate. No license plates. Ethan feels every muscle in Rex's body tighten beside him. The van stops near the loading dock. The side door slides open halfway, and for one brief second before the door closes again, Ethan hears it. A child singing softly somewhere inside. The child's voice lasts only a few seconds before the van door slides shut again with a heavy metallic sound that echoes softly across the wet loading yard. Then silence returns. Thick. Suffocating. Ethan remains crouched behind the shipping pallets while cold harbor wind pushes mist through the narrow spaces between stacked containers. Rex presses close beside him, muscles rigid beneath his dark fur, ears forward now instead of flattened. Focused. Ready. The officer near the loading dock flicks his cigarette into a puddle and glances toward the van nervously before speaking into his radio once more. Ethan cannot hear the words clearly over the distant groan of cargo ships drifting through the fog, but he catches one phrase before static swallows the rest. Chief says move them before daylight. Them. Ethan feels his heartbeat slow down instead of speed up. Marines learn early that fear becomes dangerous once it starts controlling your breathing. He studies the dock area carefully now. 2 entrances. 1 security officer outside. Cameras mounted near the warehouse roofline. Fresh tire marks leading toward the rear bay doors. And somewhere inside that building, children. Rex suddenly turns his head toward the far side of the yard and releases the faintest growl. Headlights are approaching again. Ethan ducks lower behind the pallets as a black police SUV rolls through the gate slowly and stops near the loading dock. The driver door opens. Chief Warren steps out beneath the gray morning sky, wearing a dark overcoat and leather gloves. Ethan feels his stomach drop hard. The older man speaks briefly with the security officer before looking toward the cargo van. Calm. Comfortable. Like he belongs there. Like this is routine. Rex begins trembling beside Ethan again. Not from fear this time. Recognition. Ethan places a steady hand against the dog's neck to keep him still. Chief Warren moves toward the van, and the side door opens halfway once more. Ethan catches only a glimpse inside through the fogged opening. Blankets. Small shoes scattered across the floor. Coloring books. Then the door closes again. Warren says something quietly to the driver before stepping back. The van engine starts. Ethan reaches instinctively for the radio clipped beneath his jacket, but stops himself before touching it. He cannot trust anyone inside the department now. Not after the missing report. Not after the evidence locker. Not after seeing the chief standing beside an unmarked van at dawn near an abandoned warehouse that smells like bleach and harbor water. The cargo van begins rolling slowly toward the rear exit gate. Rex suddenly lifts his head higher, sniffing hard. Then Ethan hears it again through the engine noise. A child coughing softly from inside the van. Decision arrives instantly after that. No hesitation left. Ethan unclips Rex's leash. "Track," he whispers. The German Shepherd launches forward silently through the fog the moment the van exits the yard. Ethan moves fast behind him, staying low between rusted containers while the vehicle turns onto Harbor Road, heading north along the water. Rex follows the scent trail with terrifying precision despite the rain and diesel fumes surrounding the docks. Halfway down the block, Ethan's phone suddenly vibrates inside his coat pocket. "Captain Howard." Ethan ignores the call. Seconds later, another call comes through. Then another. Rex stops abruptly beside a chain fence overlooking the road below. The cargo van waits at a red light less than 80 yards away. Ethan crouches beside the dog and pulls out his phone just long enough to check the latest voicemail notification. One new message. Captain Howard's voice arrives shaky and urgent through the speaker. "Ethan, listen to me carefully. They know you were at the docks. Do not go home. Do not go back to the precinct. And whatever you do." The message cuts briefly through static. Then Howard's voice returns lower than before. "Terrified. Do not let them take Rex." The cargo van disappears into the morning fog heading north along Harbor Road, while Ethan stands motionless behind the chain fence with Captain Howard's voicemail still echoing faintly from his phone speaker. "Do not let them take Rex." The words settle heavily in the cold air between the distant sound of ship horns and the restless crash of dark water against the docks. Rex stares toward the road where the van vanished, body tense as drawn wire. Ethan kneels beside him slowly and grips the thick fur around the dog's neck. "We are done waiting," he whispers. 15 minutes later, the old Marina Motel off Highway 17 glows weakly beneath a flickering vacancy sign buzzing against the pale sunrise. Ethan used the place once years ago after returning from overseas when sleeping around people still felt impossible. Nobody asks questions there. Nobody remembers faces. The motel room smells like dust, old cigarettes, and ocean dampness trapped inside peeling wallpaper. Rex immediately moves to the window overlooking the parking lot, ears alert toward every passing engine outside. Ethan locks the door, pulls the curtains shut, and spreads everything across the small round table beneath the weak yellow lamp. The red sneaker, Lily's drawing, the bracelet with the tiny silver cross, the folded scent cloth from Mercer Square. Every piece connected somehow by the same smell. Chlorine, harbor water, fear. Ethan opens his old laptop and begins searching internal police databases through a secure remote login. Missing persons, harbor inspections, juvenile reports. Most searches return nothing connected to Lily, like she never officially existed. Then Ethan searches medical supply properties near Pier 14. One result appears immediately. Blackwater Pediatric Outreach Storage Facility. Closed 18 months ago after flooding damage. Owner listed under Mercer Community Initiatives. Ethan stares at the screen in silence. Mercer again. Rex suddenly turns sharply toward the motel door and releases a low warning growl. Ethan reaches instinctively beneath his jacket where his service pistol rests holstered. Footsteps outside. Slow. Heavy. Then silence. Someone stops directly outside the room. Rex's growl deepens. Ethan kills the lamp instantly. Darkness swallows the room except for pale morning light leaking around the curtains. Another sound follows. A soft scrape against the doorframe. Then a voice. Quiet. Familiar. "Ethan." "Captain Howard." Ethan opens the door carefully while keeping one hand near his weapon. The captain steps inside looking exhausted, rain-soaked, and older than Ethan has ever seen him. Dark circles hang beneath his eyes, and his hands shake slightly as he removes his wet jacket. Rex watches him closely but does not bark. "You should not be here," Ethan says. Howard gives a hollow laugh. "Neither should you." The captain notices the evidence spread across the table and closes his eyes briefly, like a man finally watching a nightmare become real. "How long?" Ethan asks quietly. Howard does not answer immediately. Instead, he walks toward the motel window and parts the curtains slightly to check the parking lot. "Long enough," he finally whispers. Ethan feels anger rise hard beneath his ribs. "Children." Howard lowers his head. "Runaways mostly." Foster kids. Nobody important enough for headlines. The words hit Ethan harder than shouting ever could. Rex slowly walks toward the captain now, sniffing the older man's trembling hands. Howard kneels unexpectedly beside the German shepherd and presses his forehead gently against Rex's neck. I tried to bury it, he whispers brokenly. God help me, I tried. Ethan watches the scene in silence while morning light slowly grows stronger beyond the curtains. Then Howard reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a small brass key attached to a faded hospital tag. There is a basement level under the warehouse, he says quietly, hidden beneath the old medical storage rooms. Ethan takes the key slowly. How many kids are down there? Howard's eyes fill with something close to shame. More than you want to know. Then suddenly tires screech outside the motel parking lot. Car doors slam. Rex snaps toward the window instantly. Howard's face drains of color. They found us. The motel parking lot erupts with flashing headlights cutting through the thin morning fog, while tires crunch hard against wet gravel outside room 12. Ethan kills the lamp completely and steps away from the window instinctively as Rex positions himself low beside the door, silent except for the deep rumble growing inside his chest. Captain Howard looks frozen for half a second before reaching toward Ethan urgently. Back in trance, he whispers, "Now." Car doors slam outside. Voices. Multiple men. Calm voices. Professional voices. The kind that do not expect resistance anymore. Ethan grabs the evidence from the table and stuffs everything into his duffel bag, while Howard moves toward the bathroom window at the rear of the room. It opens into the service alley. The captain says quietly. Rex suddenly stiffens harder. Footsteps approaching directly toward the motel room. Slow. Controlled. Then 3 soft knocks hit the front door. Not angry. Worse. Patient. Ethan's hand tightens around his pistol, but he does not draw it. Officer Cole. A voice calls through the door. Chief Warren wants to talk. Howard closes his eyes briefly like hearing a funeral bell. Ethan motions toward the bathroom, and the 3 of them move carefully through the cramped motel room while another knock sounds against the door. You are making this harder than it needs to be, the voice says calmly. Rex climbs through the bathroom window, first into the narrow alley behind the motel, paws landing silently against damp pavement. Ethan follows with the duffel bag while Howard struggles behind him, older knees shaking from exhaustion and fear. The moment Ethan lands outside, another sound reaches him from the parking lot beyond the motel walls. A child crying faintly somewhere nearby. He freezes instantly. Rex hears it too. The German shepherd turns sharply toward the far end of the alley where an old maintenance van sits idling beside overflowing trash bins. No plates. Ethan feels cold rage move through him like ice water. They brought one here, he whispers. Howard looks toward the van and his face breaks completely. Oh God. The motel room door bursts open behind them. Voices shouting now. Fast footsteps. Ethan pulls Howard toward the alley exit while Rex remains fixed on the maintenance van, trembling violently again. Then the rear van doors crack open slightly. Ethan catches only the smallest glimpse inside before the doors close again. Stuffed animals. Blankets. Tiny shoes scattered across the floor. Rex lunges forward before Ethan can stop him. The German shepherd races down the alley straight toward the van while men shout behind them near the motel room. Rex. Ethan sprints after him. The maintenance van jerks suddenly into reverse, tires spraying dirty water across the alley walls. Rex reaches the side door and barks once. Loud. Furious. Not fear anymore. Protection. The van accelerates backward hard enough to nearly clip the dumpster before speeding toward the street exit. Ethan reaches Rex seconds later and grabs the dog's harness just as another black SUV screeches into the alley entrance, blocking their path. Chief Warren steps out slowly beneath the gray morning sky. No uniform now. No badge visible. Just the same dark overcoat from the docks. Calm eyes. Calm breathing. Like a man no longer pretending to be someone else. Howard stops moving entirely behind Ethan. I am sorry, the captain whispers brokenly. Warren barely glances at him. You should have stayed buried in this, Howard. Ethan steps slightly in front of Rex. Children, he says quietly. Warren looks tired more than angry. You still think the world works in simple words like good and evil. Sirens begin wailing faintly somewhere far across the city. Warren hears them too. His eyes shift briefly toward the distant sound before returning to Ethan. Daniel Mercer built the pipeline, he says softly. But he was never the real danger. Ethan feels the world narrow around those words. Harbor fog curling through the alley. Rex growling low beside him. Howard silently crying near the motel wall. Then who is? Ethan asks. Warren studies him for one long, painful second before answering. The men who wear medals while selling children in rooms beneath their own city. Then he slowly reaches inside his coat pocket and pulls out Ethan's old Marine Corps Challenge coin. The one Ethan lost overseas 12 years earlier. Rex immediately begins barking. The Marine Corps Challenge coin rests cold and worn in Chief Warren's gloved hand beneath the gray morning sky, while harbor fog curls slowly through the alley behind the motel. Ethan stares at the scratched silver emblem without breathing for half a second. He lost that coin outside Fallujah 12 years earlier after an explosion tore through a convoy road at dawn. 3 men died that morning. Ethan never understood how the coin vanished afterward. Until now. Rex keeps barking low beside him, every muscle pulled tight as wire while Captain Howard leans weakly against the motel wall, looking like a man drowning in his own regrets. Warren turns the coin over once between his fingers before speaking quietly. You remember Sergeant Nolan Briggs? Ethan feels his stomach drop immediately. Briggs, decorated Marine, smuggler after discharge, arrested 2 years later near the Texas border before disappearing from federal custody entirely. Briggs died, Ethan says carefully. Warren gives a slow, tired shake of his head. No, he adapted. Sirens continue wailing somewhere across the city, closer now, though none of them sound like they are heading toward the motel. Ethan notices that too. The absence of response. The silence where help should be. Warren steps slightly closer beneath the dim motel sign, buzzing overhead. Mercer launders the money through charity programs and outreach contracts. Harbor Security moves the shipments. But Briggs built the routes years ago using military logistics nobody questions. Ethan feels anger rising hard beneath his ribs now. Children are not shipments. Warren's eyes darken. You think I do not know that? Rex suddenly moves in front of Ethan, growling louder now while staring directly at the chief's coat pocket. Warren notices immediately. Slowly, carefully, he reaches inside and removes a folded photograph instead of a weapon. He tosses it gently onto the wet pavement between them. Ethan picks it up cautiously. The image shows a dim underground room lined with metal cots and faded blankets. Children sleeping beneath fluorescent lights. In the corner stands a little girl holding a German shepherd by the neck. Lily and Rex. Ethan feels the world narrow around that photograph. He found her during a transfer, Warren says quietly. That is why the dog attacked Mercer at the rally. He recognized the scent. Rex stops growling the moment Ethan lowers the photograph toward him. The dog sniffs the corner gently before pressing his nose against Lily's image with heartbreaking softness. Ethan swallows hard. Why show me this? Warren looks suddenly exhausted beneath the pale morning light. Because Briggs is moving the children tonight. Howard looks up sharply. Tonight. Warren nods once. Pier 19. Cargo vessel leaving before midnight. Ethan studies the chief carefully now. And you? For the first time since arriving, Warren's calm expression cracks slightly. Not fear. Shame. I spent years convincing myself I was protecting this city by controlling monsters instead of exposing them. Harbor wind rattles loose metal signs somewhere down the alley. But monsters do not stay controlled forever. Howard wipes tears from his face with shaking hands. Ethan looks between both older men while Rex remains pressed quietly against his leg beside the photograph. Then help me end it. Warren closes his eyes briefly. A long, tired breath leaves his chest. Then suddenly headlights flood the alley entrance from the street beyond. Black SUVs. More than before. Doors slam hard. Warren turns toward the sound instantly. Too late, he whispers. Men begin moving into the alley from both directions wearing tactical jackets without police insignia. Ethan reaches for his weapon instinctively while Rex steps forward, barking sharply now. One of the approaching men lifts a rifle toward Ethan. But before anyone can speak, Warren suddenly steps between them and raises both hands. Take the dog. One of the men orders coldly. Rex lunges forward immediately. Then Warren does something nobody expects. He pulls Ethan's old challenge coin tight in his fist, and shouts one sentence into the fog that changes everything. The children are under Pier 19. Rain falls again that night over Blackwater Harbor, softer now, almost gentle against the dark water beneath Pier 19, where rusted support beams disappear into black waves carrying the smell of oil and salt through the cold air. Red and blue lights flash across the docks while federal agents move carefully between shipping containers and abandoned loading cranes, voices low, radios crackling beneath the storm. Ethan walks through it all like a man still trying to wake up from a nightmare that refuses to end. Rex stays close beside him, wet fur glistening beneath harbor lights while the German shepherd scans every shadow with quiet focus. Hours earlier, hidden rooms beneath the pier had finally been opened. Children wrapped in blankets now sit inside ambulances drinking hot chocolate, while exhausted paramedics kneel beside them speaking softly. No cameras have arrived yet. No politicians. Just tired people carrying small souls back toward daylight. Ethan stops near the edge of the dock and watches the waves slam against the concrete supports below. Somewhere behind him, agents lead Daniel Mercer toward an unmarked vehicle beneath umbrellas and flashing lights. Chief Warren sits alone in the back of another car staring blankly through rain-streaked windows, while Captain Howard gives statements beside two federal investigators under the loading cranes. The city will wake tomorrow pretending shock, pretending surprise. But Ethan knows cities like Blackwater survive by teaching good people not to ask questions after dark. Rex suddenly moves away from him toward one of the ambulances parked near the pier entrance. Ethan follows quietly. Inside the open rear doors sits a little girl wrapped in a gray blanket, holding a paper cup with both tiny hands. Lily, smaller than Ethan imagined. Freckles across pale cheeks. Wet hair hanging loosely around frightened eyes far older than 7 years should ever look. A medic notices Rex first and steps back carefully. The German shepherd approaches the ambulance slowly this time. No barking, no tension, just gentle silence. Lily looks up from the blanket and freezes the moment she sees him. Then something beautiful happens in the middle of all that brokenness. She smiles. Small, weak, but real. You came back, she whispers softly. Rex places his front paws carefully against the ambulance step and lowers his head into her lap. Lily wraps both arms around the dog's neck immediately, while tears finally spill down her cheeks. Ethan turns away for half a second because some grief feels too sacred to witness directly. Harbor wind pushes rain against his coat, while distant sirens fade farther into the sleeping city. Father Marcus arrives near dawn carrying extra blankets from the church shelter. Captain Howard stands beside him looking exhausted beyond words. The older man removes Ethan's police badge from his coat pocket slowly. Internal Affairs already suspended you officially, Howard says quietly. Ethan gives a tired nod. Somehow the news no longer hurts. Howard looks down at Rex resting beside Lily inside the ambulance. That dog saved every one of them. Ethan studies the badge in Howard's hand for several long seconds before taking it quietly. Rainwater drips from the metal star onto the dock between them. Then Ethan kneels beside Rex and clips the badge gently onto the German shepherd's worn harness beside the faded military tag hanging there for years. Rex lifts his head slightly, while Lily keeps one small hand buried safely in his fur. Morning light begins rising slowly over Blackwater Harbor now, pale gold breaking through storm clouds at last. For the first time in days, the city sounds quiet again. No speeches, no sirens, no lies, just waves against the pier. A little girl breathing safely beneath a blanket, and a tired police dog resting beside the child he refused to abandon. Ethan watches the sunrise touch the water while Rex closes his eyes near Lily's heartbeat. Some men wear badges because the law gives them power. Some dogs protect people because love asks them to. And sometimes, when the world forgets what mercy looks like, God sends it back on 4 legs.